Now, me personally, I think that Kell Brook versus Diego Chaves is a good fight. If you don't know, the IBF had ordered Diego Chaves and Devin Alexander to take place, and the winner of that would take on Kell Brook. Can you really be mad at Kell Brook for facing another potential mandatory? Now, I did get a chance to talk to Keith Thurman, and the interview is right here on the channel. Turns out, according to Keith Thurman, Eddie Hearn, he referred to him as being, his manager, but he's promoter. Eddie Hearn does not want Keith Thurman and Kell Brook to fight for whatever reason. We got Kell Brook who's chasing Amir Khan. Amir Khan doesn't want to fight him for whatever reason. And then we had a small little period of time when Kell Brook was heavily being rumored to be a potential Floyd Mayweather opponent. Now here we are. Floyd Mayweather has announced that he was going to be fighting Andre Berto. Now we know that there was a potential deal for Kell Brook to fight Brandon Rios. It fell through. We know that Kell Brook is not fighting Amir Khan. We know that there's not going to be an Kell Brook versus Sean Porter rematch. We know there's not going to be a Kell Brook versus Keith Thurman. And you're asking yourself, well, does Kell Brook really want to fight top-level competition? Maybe he does, but maybe Eddie Hearn is trying to keep that IBF belt in the UK as long as he can. I mean, after all, Jojo Dan, Frankie Gavin, and then when it comes to Diego Chaves, if you don't know, Diego Chaves is a very cheap opponent to get. But one good thing about Diego Chaves, to his credit, is he was beating Brandon Rios. Whether it was a nasty, ugly fight, whatever the case may be, he was beating Brandon Rios. When you look at the Timothy Bradley fight, that fight was a draw. But for him to have a draw against a guy like Timothy Bradley, despite who you think won or whatever the case may be, that's like a win for a guy like Diego Chaves. Diego Chaves also gave Keith Thurman a very tough fight, and Keith Thurman was the only one to stop Diego Chaves. But what I'm saying is, there's a storyline there. And if a guy like Kell Brook was to cleanly and decisively defeat a guy like Diego Chaves, then, that's a feather in his cap, in my opinion. But if you don't know, I'm TstreeT Controversy. This is TstreeT Controversy Live with RealCombatMedia.com, and I cover every single major fight live. That is the rumor. That is the rumor that's going around right now, that Kell Brook's going to be either fighting Chris Van Herden, I believe his name is, or Diego Chaves. Why not a Devin Alexander? I don't know. But as it stands right now, Kell Brook is in a situation where that belt, that IBF belt he has, may not be coveted, but it means a lot, to the point where if you look at the Floyd Mayweather situation, he's got the WBA and the WBC. You got Timothy Bradley's got that WBO, and then you got Kell Brook who's got that IBF. So Kell Brook in a situation can be a big unification fight for a guy like Timothy Bradley, but who is keeping who? I'm getting confused. And I guess I'm getting confused because I'm starting to learn a little too much. And what I'm saying is, it's starting to look like to me, even though Kell Brook may want to fight big names, Kell Brook is being kept away from certain big names for certain reasons. So, I'm learning things as I've been doing my whole media reporting, investigative journalism thing, that when it comes to a guy like Keith Thurman, and I'm pretty sure, Al Heyman would love to make a Kell Brook versus Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman, in my opinion, would take Kell Brook's belt, in my opinion. But a guy like Eddie Hearn wouldn't want to risk that right now. But yet a guy like Brandon Rios would seem like easy pickings for Kell Brook, to in Eddie Hearn. You see where I'm going with this? It just looks like, his matchmaking is being very careful for a reason, but also they're fighting mandatories or potential mandatories. And when you're the IBF champion, you got to fight your mandatories or you're going to be stripped. So them fighting the mandatories is kind of like saying, well, we're fighting the people we're supposed to fight, or if we don't fight these people, we're going to get stripped. For example, Jojo Dan was the mandatory. Frankie Gavin was a potential mandatory. After, and then with Diego Chaves, him and Devin Alexander were scheduled to fight. Well, were told to fight by the IBF, and Kell Brook may be intervening in, fighting Diego Chaves. And like I said, in my opinion, even though it's not a fight that fans would want to see, I think it's a good test and a good fight, you know, for a guy like Kell Brook, especially if he can get a clean, decisive win. But if he loses, then we know he's not world class. I'm TstreeT Controversy with RealCombatMedia.com, and I cover every single major fight live. Please subscribe.